There's the note. Thank you. So again, we are not a lender. We're not lending money to you. We are buying the property with you. And when we sell the property, we each get our share of the proceeds. So while you live in the home, what we thought is fair is we don't really get to live in the house. We don't get to really benefit or appreciate the house while we own it with you. And instead of charging you rent on the portion of the house that we own, instead what we say is you live in the home, you love it, and you take care of it. So when it comes to maintenance costs, as an example, when it comes to making sure the property is being well maintained, that will be the responsibility of you, the buyer who gets to live in it. And at the same time, you'll still have a mortgage just like any other property. You'll still be paying down your mortgage at the same time. And I'll tell you a bit about what you get back when you sell the property. But what I can say right now is you will be responsible for paying the mortgage as you own the property. So maintenance, property taxes, mortgage costs, those are all things that will be your responsibility while you live in the property. This is important. So buyers can sell the home at any time. If you decide after 1 year it's not the home for you and you'd like to sell, we will not stand in your way. If you want to live in the property for 25 years or 30 years, that's okay too. Our agreement lasts for 30 years, so it matches usually the typical length it takes to actually pay down your entire mortgage on a property. We usually say this product is best for a starter home to help you get into the market, because working with us, there is a trade-off, and I want to be very clear about that. If you can buy a home all by yourself and you have the full down payment already, you can get all the upside, all the appreciation, all the profit when you sell the property, rather than having to split some of that profit with us. So what we usually tell people is, if you want to buy with us, do so until you build up enough equity that you can sell the property and buy your next property without us. We want to basically be a stepping stone for you to be a full homeowner by yourself. I like to say this is an alternative to renting. It's not necessarily an alternative to buying on your own. So beyond just us giving the down payment amount or us contributing or investing the down payment, we also will contribute our fair share of land transfer tax. Now, this is something that a lot of you might not have heard of before, but when you buy a property, there's a lot of expenses that happen on day one that you don't even know, or that you might not know are coming. And they're called closing costs. Some of those are legal fees. Some of those are the cost of an appraisal that the bank might require of you. But the biggest one is the land transfer tax. And in the GTA, it can be as much as 4% of the value of the property. So on day one, you might have a $40,000 bill to pay when you buy this property. When you buy with us, we'll basically pay our fair share of the land transfer tax. So if we contributed 50% of the down payment and you contributed the other 50%, we would contribute 50% of the land transfer tax as well. Secondly, it's in our best interest. And one of the reasons why I love the model and the product is basically we only win when the buyer wins, and the buyer wins when we win. So for us, it's in our best interest, like just being a business looking to make a profit, it's in our best interest to make sure that the property increases in value over time and that we're selecting the right properties that we think are going to increase in value. So when you move into the home, we actually will pay for complimentary home maintenance checkups for you. So we'll have an expert, if you want to, come into the property, give you an assessment and a report on exactly how the property is doing, what items might be coming up for maintenance. If you need a new boiler or you need to do a roof replacement, they'll help give you a schedule. So none of this stuff will, just come out of nowhere. You'll have a clear plan on day one. And what's also nice is you have a clear phone number. If anything ever goes wrong in the property, you have one phone number you can call, and they'll be the ones to organize plumbers, electricians, carpenters, really whatever you need through that service. And that service is free of charge. The only cost that will come is if there's a particular maintenance that needs to get completed, that would be a cost that goes to the buyer. And again, I always talk about it. We are a fully aligned partner. So we don't want, like you, we don't want to overpay for a property. We don't want to pay more than we need to buy a property. We don't want to buy a property that's not going to be a good fit for you or won't have potential to grow financially. And when you're in the property, we're going to do everything that we can to help you increase the value of the property. So in a scenario, let's say you want to renovate, as an example, we'll actually provide renovation credits if that renovation increases the value of the property. So really, we're trying to imagine ourselves as a silent investment partner that has your back in case you need it. We're not going to come into your house unannounced and put our feet on your coffee table. But if you need some help with the property, if you need some help, thinking through your options, we are there for you because, again, it's in our best interest to do so. So a lot of people ask us, all right, where is this money coming from and what's the catch? And why does this work? So what we do basically is we work with individuals and organizations and the government of Canada actually as well they've all come together to effectively create a fund. And that fund is our job to manage. So OurBoro's job is to manage funds for a pool of real estate investors who don't want to buy properties and become landlords. They'd rather help others break into the housing market. And they don't, for a lot of property investors, it's a hassle to be a landlord. It's hard it's scary to kind of put your eggs in one basket if you buy a property. So our investors, they like us because they're basically ensuring that the person who lives in the house cares about it in the same way that they do and wants to see that property grow in value. So our investors are actually our customers in some way. We charge them a fee for us to manage their investments, and in turn we use that to help grow their wealth through the appreciation of the home, just like it would be for you. And I'll walk you through an example so you can see, how much does the investor get? How much do I get when it comes to selling a property? So let's use just simple numbers. If you wanted to buy a home today for $1 million, as an example, I'm using $1 million. It's a high number. It might be lower. It might be higher. But we use it because it's just a round, even number, and it's easy to understand. So typically, for $1 million home, you're going to need the lender or the bank to put in 80% of the money you need. And that's going to be the loan or the mortgage that you take out. But on day one, you need to show up with 20% of the home's value as your down payment. That's $200,000. So let's imagine in this example, you as the home buyer, you have $80,000 saved for the down payment, but you need to get to $200,000. You need to get to 20% to be able to buy this home. So OurBoro will come in and we'll put in the other $120,000 so that altogether we get to a $200,000 down payment. We get to 20%. Now, another way to look at that is if we just took the down payment alone and said, how much of the down payment are each of us contributing? In this scenario, the home buyer, that's a little bit, you miss it here, but the home buyer is putting in 40% of the down payment and OurBoro is putting in 60%. This is important because this is effectively our ownership shares in the property. And the way that OurBoro is able to make this program work is we receive an interest in the future appreciation of the home that is in proportion, that is equal to the amount that we're putting in for the down payment. So 60% is how much OurBoro is putting in towards the down payment. The home buyer or yourself is putting in 40% of the down payment, That gets us to $200,000, and that's what we need to be able to buy the home. So let's imagine 10 years from now. 10 years pass by. In that time, the property's done very well. We call this the upside scenario. So in 10 years, the new property, your property you're selling it, and you're selling it for $1.5 million. It's basically increased in value by 500K. Now, the first thing that happens when we sell the property after the proceeds come in is the bank automatically gets paid back whatever is still owing on the mortgage. So over 10 years, let's imagine, just to keep it simple, that you've paid off $100,000 of the mortgage. So that 800K that they first lent to you, you've paid off 100,000 of it. Now there's $700,000 remaining. That gets sent right back to the bank on day like the day that we sell. That means after the bank gets paid back, there's $800,000 in net proceeds and money left over after the bank gets their cut. So the first thing we do, and this is really important, and I mentioned it about mortgage payments earlier, you were paying mortgage payments throughout those 10 years. That money shouldn't be ours. That's money that you were paying back to your loan. So the first thing we do is we return any of the mortgage principal that you contributed or paid down to the bank. So you paid $100,000 off of the mortgage. We're going to make sure that the first thing that happens is $100,000 goes into your pool of money when we sell the property. That means there's $700,000 left to split, basically. And we basically split that according to how much we invested on day one. OurBoro invested 60%, so we would take 60% of that $700,000. The homeowner invested 40% or contributed 40%. That equals $280,000 of that 700K pool. So now, when you walk away, you now have $280,000 of equity that you've built up over that time, plus $100,000 of your mortgage principal that gets paid back to you. So this is an upside scenario. And I bring it up because you can tell OurBoro does well here too. We walk away, we contributed more to the down payment in this scenario. So we're going to get more of that net appreciation. Of course, it could be flipped. You as the homeowner might only need OurBoro to contribute 40%. And if that's the case, if we only contributed 40% and you contributed 60% on day one, then this would be you would get the $420,000 here, plus you would still receive the 100K in mortgage principal. So then in that scenario, you'd walk away with $520,000. So the moral of the story, you get out what you put in. So the more you're able to put in on day one, the more of the upside you're able to get. But it's always consistent and it's always fair based on how much we each contribute on day one. So let's imagine things don't go our way. And 10 years later, things aren't looking good. The market's down. But for whatever reason, let's just imagine you had to sell. Maybe you're moving to a new city, whatever the reason might be. And now we're only able to sell the property for $800,000. So in this scenario, basically the same thing happens in step one. The bank gets their money back. They gave you a loan of $800,000. We're imagining even in that scenario, you still paid down $100,000 over those 10 years to your mortgage. That means you have $700,000 left that has to get paid back to the bank. They get that right away, which means there's only $100,000 left to be split. But in that time, you paid down $100K of your mortgage principal. So you're going to get that back. It's a priority payment, even if the property gets sold for less. Now that means that there's $0 of net appreciation, $0 left to split. OurBoro walks away with $0, and you as the homeowner walks away with basically just $100,000, which is how much you paid down in your mortgage over that time. So as you can see in this example, OurBoro is truly an investor. We're not a lender because we contributed 120K at the beginning, but if the property doesn't do well or for whatever reason the market goes down and you have to sell, and by the way, we'll never stop a sale. So if you have to sell, even if the market's down, we have no recourse, we have no ability to stop that from happening. But let's say that happens, we are walking away with $0 in this scenario. So we're really a true, what we call equity partner in the property with you. So just to kind of summarize those two examples, in the upside scenario where the property is sold for $1.5 million, you've contributed 280K, or you've received 280K in your equity growth. You get $100,000 back in your mortgage principal payments, and that leaves you with 380K. In the downside scenario, there's no equity left to split. We actually lost equity in the property. And now you still get that mortgage principal back, so you walk away with $100,000. OurBoro walks away with $0 in the downside scenario, and then we walk away with 60% of that appreciation in the upside scenario, if that's what we contributed on day one, which is 420K. So there's probably questions that are already starting to come up. If you have them, please feel free to leave them in the chat. We'll also do a space for people to put their hands up and unmute themselves a bit later. But that's the general summary of how it works. And if you're interested in working with OurBoro, if you're curious, we want to make sure you understand the following criteria. So we currently, our investors are interested in only certain regions in the GTA and around Ontario. So GTA and Hamilton, Kitchener-Waterloo, London, and Guelph. These are the areas that we are currently investing in. This is another really important fact. OurBoro only works with people who are looking to buy a home as their primary residence. We want this to be a solution for people who don't have access to home ownership so that they can live in their own home. This is really important to us. So we can only work with people who are purchasing as a primary residence. That said, if you live in the home and you want to rent out the basement or you want to rent out a room in your property, all of that income that goes to you. We don't participate or share in any of the income, and of course that tenant would be your responsibility as well. But as long as you are living in the property and it's your primary residence, that's what matters to us the most. Next, this is another important one. We require that you bring in at least 5% of the home's value towards the down payment at the time of purchase. So another way to say this is you need to be able to bring in about 25% of the down payment. And this is important to us as well because really that's where you're going to be building equity off of. So if you're contributing none of the down payment, there's no real opportunity for you to build equity because that's really what grows over time. So it's really, really important that you would be able to contribute at least 5%. And then you'll need to be able to qualify for a mortgage and the amount needed to buy the home that you want with one of our approved lenders. So we spent the first 2 years of building OurBoro, building up relationships, working with financial regulators in Canada to get this program off the ground. It's not every lender is still comfortable with the project and they don't yet have their own internal systems to be able to track what we call co-ownership or shared equity. So there's only a handful of approved lenders that we work with. And we're bringing on new lenders pretty much every couple of months. But it does need to, like, if you already have a mortgage pre-approval with a lender, if it's not with one of ours, you'd have to go back and get a mortgage pre-approval with one of our lenders. Okay. And I mentioned this as well. Like we launched the product in 2022 in January in 2022. And since then, we've contributed just over $7 million to folks seeking to co-own or buy with us. We've received about 1,200 applications in that time. We have right now, I think about 30 folks who are actively putting bids and making offers on properties. And the numbers are great. You know, we've won approval with the government of Canada and the Canada Mortgage Housing Corporation, which is one of our funders as well. And that's all great. And we love seeing the momentum and the interest. I think there's a lot of people who see value in the product. But for me personally, I come back to my own experience, my own family, and knowing that the thing that makes it special to me is getting to meet each buyer and seeing kind of the impact that this product can have on their lives. So it's very exciting for us, and we're really thrilled that we're able to share it with the world. So we are at the question and answer period. And we have one question so far that's come in, which is, we have a second one that's just jumped in. But the first one that came in is, you know, what happens if, for example, there's a natural disaster that the home insurance does not cover? So first point, everyone will be required to have home insurance. That's something that we'll work through with you as you buy the property. But in situations where there's a disaster at home that insurance does not cover, which are, I would say, very, very rare, but you know they're the very, very off chances, we have no recourse. So same as you, if the property decreases in value and it can no longer be, you know, we can't reclaim it in any kind of way, then OurBoro walks away with $0. So we will not insure, you know, Elisa or Alyssa. We won't require you to pay us back anything in that scenario. Danielle, you had a question as well, which is, would we need to work with specific real estate agents or lawyers in the process with OurBoro? The answer is yes. Agents, less so. So Fatma here is an incredible agent, and honestly, I absolutely love her and think would be a phenomenal choice for you. If you do have your own agent that you've already been working with, as an example, though, you know, we are willing to work with them. We always recommend agents that know OurBoro's model and has worked with us. We think it works a lot better. It'll make the process a lot smoother for you if you choose to work with an OurBoro referral partner. But when it comes to lawyers, that actually is a requirement. So you would need to work with a lawyer because they're effectively representing us and you in the deal. And I can tell you that it requires lawyers who actually have a full understanding of our co-ownership agreement, which is the major document that we would be signing together when we buy the property. And if it was another lawyer coming in, I can tell you now, it would cost you a heck of a lot more money to work with them because they'd have a lot more work to do. But luckily, because we work with lawyers and we're working at scale with legal professionals, we actually have a discount for all of our buyers on their legal costs at the time of closing. Okay, Larimu, I see your question as well coming up. Danielle, thanks for the thumbs up. So 1 to 5 years down the line, if you wanted to buy out OurBoro's share of the property, I think that's really what you're getting to here. That is totally okay, and you're absolutely allowed to. Like, we definitely accept buyouts of the property. Now, just like any good partner, we have to feel like that deal is reasonable for us. So, you know, and we base it off of what the fair market value of the property is at the time. So 5 years down the road, you know, if the property is increased in value over time, you know, we feel comfortable, you know, we have someone come in to appraise the property and it's done well and you want to buy out our share, no problem at all. If the property has decreased in value though, and then you know, as a partner, effectively our share has gotten smaller, we probably won't accept the buyout in that scenario because it's not really fair to us. And we want to make sure that people can't abuse or game the system by trying to buy us out low. You know, we really try to think about this as fair partnership between two people. We have more questions popping up.
If anybody wants to maybe unmute themselves and ask the questions, please feel free to do so.
Absolutely.
We want this to be as interactive as possible. So the more questions you ask, the benefit for everybody, because maybe somebody has the same question or somebody will be like, oh, that's a good question. So let's all learn, and feel free to unmute and ask questions or type it in. Oh, we have Jerome is asking, are you available to cover Niagara region?
Not yet, unfortunately. So we haven't expanded to Niagara region yet, but hopefully we'll get there in a year or two. And in fact, when we first started, we only did the GTA. We expanded very recently to Hamilton and Kitchener, Waterloo, and Guelph, and we're trying to bring new regions into the fold as we go. Any questions? Feel free to unmute. I believe you have the ability to, and if you want to turn on your camera as well and say hi, that's
Hi.
also very okay.
Hi, Eyal. How are you?
Hi, Jerome.
Hi. So, is also condo can be used with the OurBoro?
Yeah, definitely. So
So
we can.
any properties except mobile properties or what? So
That's
condo, semi-detached townhouse can be used as a
exactly right.
partner. Awesome.
How
Thank
about
you.
pre-constructions?
Oh, even pre-construction. Oh, yeah. How
Great
about
question.
pre-construction?
Oh, Fab, I like it. So we aren't doing pre-constructions yet, but we are working on it, and we're hoping within the next year we'll be able to offer some.
Awesome.
It is more complicated though, and so it doesn't really work. So right now it's currently only resale properties, and Jerome, to your point, it's semi-detached, detached, townhouse, condos. All of those are available.
On how about the minimum amount, minimum price? Let's say usually OurBoro is basically more needed on the first-time buyers. So
Yeah.
is there a minimum amount of the property that they plan to, just in case?
Yes, that's a great question. Thanks for bringing it up. So our minimum is $450,000. So the
Okay.
property price would have to be above $450,000 for us to be able to work with you.
And with a 5% down payment as a counterpart of the buyer.
Exactly right. Yeah.
Okay. And who pays the closing cost?
So land transfer tax will cover our share. So if we put in, using the example, if we put in 60% of the down payment, we'll cover 60% of the land transfer tax.
Okay.
The other closing costs, like legal fees, that would be for the buyer to pay.
So basically with OurBoro, it has to be somewhere around 20%. Everything has to be paid so that they will not go for CMHC.
That's right. Yeah, you know your stuff. That's exactly right. So effectively, we get you to 20%, so you don't need to buy mortgage
That's great.
insurance.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is amazing because with the 20% down, that automatically decreases your mortgage payments.
Yeah.
In addition to that, you're avoiding CMHC, which would have been an additional cost onto your mortgage monthly. Correct. Yes.
Awesome.
And it's been
That's a great
yeah.
product.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it's been interesting for us because, early on when we first launched, we had a lot of people buying properties over $1 million. But as the interest rates began to really, really increase and monthly costs started going up, I would say the majority now are actually folks who are looking for condos or properties under $1 million where they could put in less than 20% and get mortgage insurance, but they choose not to because the carrying costs, the amount they'd have to pay on a monthly basis to pay off their mortgage, taxes, the mortgage insurance just got so high that they preferred to just work with us instead.
Yeah. And let's say for someone who is already a property and they're buying it on a second one, are you okay also to do a partner with that?
As long as it's going to be their primary residence, we're okay. So if you
Also, let's say they're moving to a new place as a primary residence, then OurBoro can still manage to be a partner.
That's correct. Yes.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Abdullahi, I see your question here on the chat. In terms of GTA, it's Peel, Durham, Scarborough, Mississauga, Oshawa. We're really all the way up north up to Barrie, basically. So we do span quite a lot. Like we use the most broad term for Greater Toronto area.
I see Jeremy has his hands up.
Hi, my name is Jeremy. I have a question. So if you were to partner with you, you're going to appear on the title, on the legal transfer document that's registered at the land's office?
Great question, Jeremy. we will not be on title. And that's actually something really important because, you know, when we originally started planning this and we thought, okay, the safest way for us to make sure that our interest in the property is protected is to be on title. But if we did that, we would end up having to you would only have access to commercial mortgages, because if a corporation or a company is on title for a property, it automatically becomes a commercial mortgage. And those are much more expensive than a residential mortgage. So what we did is we worked with lawyers over a long time, paid a lot of money to a lot of lawyers to figure out a way for us to ensure that our interest is cared for without actually putting our name on title and without putting any kind of lien on the property. So if someone was to do a title registry search, as an example, Jeremy, you wouldn't see OurBoro's name on there. You would just see, Jeremy Award.
Okay. And lastly, when it comes to refinancing, you guys, do you allow that, or do you accept someone's going to refinance?
Definitely, yeah. And we'll walk you through the process. We have people going through it right now, actually, for the first time. And we'll walk you through the process. It will require our consent, just because we are a partner in the property. And we'll make sure, like, the one thing we have to make sure is that when the refinance happens, you know, we're not, you know, our partner is not refinancing into OurBoro's share of the equity. You know, and we'll walk you through that, like, when the time comes. But absolutely, like, if the property value grows and you want to refinance for whatever reason, you can absolutely do the refinancing process.
Thank you.
While we're waiting for the next question, I'm going to ask the question. I know the answer, but for the benefit of everybody else, I think it's a good thing to talk about. Tell us about upgrades. So I've purchased with OurBoro. I want to do some upgrades in the house. How is that? How does that look like?
Great question. So let's use an example. Let's say you want a new kitchen. You know, you feel like it's something that can really increase the value of the property. You know, what we will basically say is, come to us first. If you want to do a major renovation, just like any partner, you want to check in with us and say, hey, we're thinking about making this renovation. There's two reasons why you want to do that. One is we actually have a great list of vetted contractors that we work with, who we know will do quality work, that we've negotiated you know, favorable pricing for that work. So that's part one. Part two is if the renovation increases the value of the property, let's say you do a $20K, you know, kitchen upgrade, and it increases the value of the property by $20,000. At the time of sale, we'll actually credit you back our share of that renovation. So if you paid $20,000 to do that, and we were 50-50 partners on the property, when we sell the property, we would take $10,000 out of our pool and put it into your pool to make sure that you get paid back for the renovation. Yeah, and it goes back to that idea, like, we win if you win. So we want to incentivize you to make upgrades and renovations because it will increase the value of the property, and then, you know, we both benefit from that.
Yeah. I have another question.
Sure.
In case, I know you mentioned that it is for primary residence. What if two people have come together to purchase a property with the agreement that one of them is going to be living in that property?
Good question.
Would that work?
It would only work if it was family. So, and this is mostly because of the lenders and the mortgage side. Lenders aren't very comfortable with two non-related people coming together and buying a property. And they get more anxious if you add a third party like OurBoro to that deal. So they're not very comfortable with that. But what they are comfortable with is, you know, if you have a parent or a sister or brother who you want to buy with, in those scenarios, yes, we would absolutely be okay with that.
Okay. Thank you. Elisa is asking, is Milton part of the areas you cover?
It is, yes. We actually just closed on a property in Milton last week, so yes.
Awesome. And for those that were in my previous co-ownership, what's it called, webinar, we did have a lawyer. Actually, he did mention that because you do have, I believe you do encourage somebody to have a lawyer as well to go through the agreement. Is that correct, Jan?
That's right. Not only do we encourage it, we require it. So it's so important to us that 5-10 years down the road, you don't look at this agreement and say, I didn't really understand it, and I'm not really happy with OurBoro. So to get ahead of that, what we said is, okay, every person who works with us is going to seek out independent legal advice, independent of us, to look through the agreement to make sure that they understand all the terms, and to have someone, a third party who has no interest in OurBoro, to look at that and say, yeah, here's what this means. You know, here are the benefits, here are your responsibilities, here are the risks. And that's just important to us because we want partners to come in eyes open. Like, transparency is really, really important to us. And as you can tell, even I'm trying to in the seminar here to explain, like, you know, here's the real trade-off, and it's important for us that you understand it.
Awesome, awesome. Yes. So what I was going to add was that what was interesting is he actually had some applications in front of him where he was reviewing contracts for OurBoro, so which was very interesting. I was happy to hear that.
That's great. It's a small community, the co-ownership world, and I think it's a great concept. You know, even if 2 people come together and do it, I think it's
absolutely 100%. Yeah. Jerome has a question.
So thank you, Fatma. So with regards to, let's say you're buying a property and let's say you're asking for a renovation to convert, let's say, the lower level as a rental, will you allow it?
Oh, we would love that. That sounds awesome, because we know that creating a rental property on a basement, let's say a basement rental property, really can increase the value of the property. So not only will we allow it, we'll make sure that that's credited in terms of the renovation credits when the property is sold, and any of the income that comes from that new rental space would all go to you. We don't, as our thinking here is, that's your tenant. You're the one who's take care of them. That's your income.
Okay, awesome. As long as the original owner or the primary could be their primary residence.
Exactly.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
So,
This is much better than RTO.
oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, and much better also with, I know there was a program that the government had introduced that didn't go very well. There's a few differences I can see, and I feel that this is more a win-win situation. With that one, it wasn't something that I would confidently tell somebody, I'll go for it. But this one, absolutely, I was just like, this makes absolute sense, and it's a win-win for everybody, and I definitely want more people to know about this.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, we tried really hard to make something that we felt was fair and reasonable.
Correct. Any more questions? We are coming almost to the end. Jerome has another question.
Yeah, one more question, Aya.
Sure.
So right before, as a first step, let's say if there is an interested and they want, do they have to go to their mortgage broker or mortgage agent, or they'll go directly with OurBoro?
I'm actually super happy you asked me that question, because I would have forgotten. So what I would say is, Fatma's going to provide after this session a link to an application form that you can use. And that way we can make sure that you can apply. It's a very quick application form to start, and there's no commitment at the beginning. Like, in fact, there's no commitment to OurBoro. Even if we get all the way to the end of the process, you have a property, you've signed an APS, even then you can decide to back out and say, actually, I don't want to do this with OurBoro. I'm going to do it myself, or find a different pathway. But if you want to start the application, it's 10 minutes. We'll have somebody on our team call you as well, and then we'll connect you directly to mortgage support and the lender as well.
So basically, the lender, it should be let's say accredited also with OurBoro.
Exactly.
From your...
Exactly. They need to be an OurBoro partner.
Thank you.
No problem.
I have a question.
Sure, Jeremy.
Yeah, it's based on what the other person has just said, the application. Does that mean when you're applying, your application might be rejected, or is it a guarantee? It's good to know from the get-go.
So,
go ahead.
Yeah, in our application, we have the same, we ask the same, like we make sure that you meet the criteria, right? So we make sure that you have 5% down, those kinds of questions. Like they're looking to buy in our region, but we won't reject at that stage. Like we don't have a rejection for applications based off of the information. It's very basic. I'd say that the place where people get caught up is usually with the mortgage pre-approval. So, the lender's still going to have to go through and make sure that you qualify for a mortgage. And that's sometimes a scenario where people struggle. If their credit scores, don't meet the needs of the lender, as an example, or their income or their debt ratios, it's not really our place. Like what we say is like, if you could buy without us, or if you could apply for a mortgage and get a mortgage without us, so long as you meet the criteria we've already discussed, you could absolutely apply with OurBoro.
And how long does the application process take?
The first application is like 10 minutes tops. Like at most is 10 minutes. We get people through the whole process. So long as you're ready to go through the mortgage pre-approval and have everything you need to get a mortgage pre-approval, it's as quick as 2 weeks to go through the process. We've actually had people come to us who've already had a signed agreement of purchase and sale, and their lender, for whatever reason, required them to get more equity. They came to us, and we were able to expedite their application and make sure that they could actually get into that home. So we'll work with you based off of your timeline to make sure that we can meet your needs.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem.
So I'm going to put the referral link here for everybody. And I'm also going to put my phone number.
Okay.
Awesome. Right, we 3 minutes to go. Perfect timing. Unless somebody has another question. One last one.
Okay.
Calgary area, Janet asks.
Oh, I missed that. Sorry. Oh,
Janet.
Calgary, not yet. We're hoping in the future. But that's probably about more like 2 years out. But we do have plans to bring this across Canada. Awesome.
This is great. It is definitely a win-win situation, or a win-win model that it's just exciting for me, honestly. I feel that it is such a game changer for many, many buyers. For sure. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes. All right. So unless there's no more questions, Eyal, if you have any closing remarks.
Just thank you for the time. Honestly, it's always a pleasure for me to talk about what we're doing, and I'm just so excited that we have an opportunity to provide something like this out into the world. And again, if you're interested and if you're not sure, you might as well just try the application form and talk to us a bit more. And if it's not a good fit, that's okay. It's not for everybody, and we totally understand that. But if it works for you, fantastic.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I would encourage, I have provided you with my phone number. I will be sending out an email as a follow-up anyway, but please do feel free to get in touch with me, text me, call me if you have any questions. I'd be happy to answer you. If there's any other real estate questions that you may have, I'll be happy to answer any of that as well. So thank you so much, everybody, for attending and participating. Thanks, Jerome. Thanks, Melissa. And thank you, Danielle, as well, for your comments. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Take care, everybody.
Awesome. Okay. Bye now.
Bye-bye.